Subscribe. Help me hit 500 subs by January 1st, 2021. Guaranteed to offend anyone. It is I, your grumpy guide to all things gaming, the toxic gatekeeper, the OGGM, with another OGGM adventure. And today it is day six of RPG a Day 2020. And if you have access to this amazing thing that called the interweb, and if you have access to YouTube or Tumblr or Instagram or TikTok or I don't know what else, AOL, and you have any interest in access to our role-playing hobby, this is free. And we've got a lot of free time right now. So if you haven't started taking part of it, maybe you should consider, because it's, interesting to see other people's input into what's going on in our hobby. So today is day 6. The word is forest. Into the woods we go, into the woods. And what does the idea of forest mean in creating storytellings? The forest is the unknown. It's everything outside the confines of the town, is the confines of the village. Everything inside the village is safe, and everything outside of the village is trying to hurt everything inside the village. And it is the job of the heroes to leave the village, to go out into the forest, to go out into the dark, to go out into the world and fight the darkness. Be better than the darkness. Bring the light into the darkness and make the world, for the village, for the town, for safety, a better place, even though they themselves will be changed by the journey. The whole basic concept of the heroic journey, as Campbell described it, is the hero leaves the village, goes out into the world, and by going out into the world, they are changed. So when they return to the village, they're not the same person. And that is exemplified by Bilbo in The Hobbit, going out into the world, exploring the world, leaving the safety of the Shire, going into the woods, going into the mountains, going into the world that is greater than himself. And my favorite quote is when, the scene where Bilbo's in the tree and he's saying, I suddenly wondered if I'd ever see my quaint little hobbit hole again. I suddenly wondered if I wanted to, because he's just climbed out of the tree out of Mirkwood. He's just seen all the dark and horrible things that the world can't offer him. But by climbing the tree and getting a new perspective, he sees above the darkness, and he sees this beautiful treescape that just stretches for miles and miles, and the sunlight reflecting and dappling off all this multiple colors of leaves. And then he sees this amazing swarm of black and purple butterflies rise up, disturbed by his presence, and just fly off. And it's one of the most heartbreakingly beautiful things Bilbo has seen. And he realizes that the ugly of the darkness doesn't matter, because there is light, and he is seeing light and embracing light and seeing the beauty of the world and bringing that beauty into him and taking that beauty back down into the dark, thus making the dark a better place, because he is a better person because of the encounters for him. Going into the forest has changed our hero. And when our hero returns to the Shire at the end of The Hobbit, he is changed, and he cannot go home again. He is perceived differently by everybody else, and in his own heart, he perceives himself differently, because now he's got a taste of the world beyond his door, and he wants to see it again. He wants to see it again so much that at his 111th birthday, he leaves the Shire again to go on one last adventure. And of course, he had other smaller adventures in between that 70-year gap, where he would go off for a day trip or two. He would return to Rivendell. He would go over to Bree. He would have little teeny adventures, often using the ring. But whatever, the going into the forest has changed him. And the forest, the idea of, in our creative storytelling, in our idea of this interactive web of stories that we tell as, players and GMs and people taking part of role playing, that represents everything outside of the safety and the confines of the beginning of the adventure. You're safe at the beginning of the adventure. You have a choice to step outside your door, even though you don't know where the road's going to take you or what you're going to see. And you know that if you come back, you will be a bigger person, a better person. You will be changed, but you really can't go home. Home is not home anymore. You've seen too much. You've experienced too much. You have too much beauty and too many scars. You've seen too much wonder and you've seen too much terror. You've seen what's beyond the ocean. You've seen the beauty of elves. You've seen the beauty of dwarves. You've seen the beauty of the lands beyond. So to come back to that small little world of the safety of the village, once you've gone into the forest, changes you. That's the whole point of the heroic journey. Our hero leaves the village. He meets certain individuals, certain iconic archetypes who help him or hinder him or take part in the shaping of him. But once he returns from the forest back to the village, the forest has changed him. Adventuring has changed us. Adventuring has, hopefully, role-playing, this hobby, from the moment we sit down and start rolling dice and say, I'm going to go for a walk in the forest and see what happens, which is how TJ Storm started his campaign, with us 20, 30 some odd years ago, with a bunch of just kids sitting around going, all right, we're just going to go for a walk in the forest and see what happens. And then that led to a 15-year-long campaign. But it starts with just the DM saying, okay, you're going into the forest for a walk to see what happens. And knowing full well that if you do this right, with love and passion and heart and joy and togetherness and the love of play, this will change you. And when you come back from the forest, when you come back from your adventure, when you go back home, hopefully you have brought that beauty and wonder and, yes, terror and loneliness. And for every horrible thing that you're going to encounter in life, you're hopefully going to also encounter something wonderful. And you bring that with you. And because you bring it back with you, you are changed. If you go into the forest, if you role play, if you go on an adventure, if you leave the safety of your door and go out into the world, you will be changed, hopefully for the better. And when you come back, you will not be the same person. And maybe being back doesn't feel like home anymore. Suddenly the world seems small. And I'm pretty sure my shirt's inside out. Anyways, that's the word for the day. Forrest on RPG A Day 2020. Please take a moment to consider taking part of this great experiment yourself. Also, sub to my vlog if you haven't subbed yet. I'm trying to hit 500 subs by January 1st, midnight 2021. And if you have an opinion and you want to comment, you want to vote, you want to say, Mike, what I think you're saying is great, or Mike, what I think you're saying is totally stupid and you don't know what you're talking about, you need to sub. Because the only way I'm going to see your comments, the only way I'm going to respond to your comments, the only way you can vote on the direction this goes is if you subscribe. So please take a moment to subscribe. Please take a moment to support me through the PayPal so I can buy a better setup, because I know people complain about the editing and the camera angle and that there's nothing behind me. Well, I can't afford it. So if you want better editing, if you want a better camera angle, if you want to see more interesting things behind me, buy me it. I can be bought. I do have a price. Into the woods we go. Talk to you losers later.